In the sleepy English countryside, on a farm called Denbrook, there lived a shepherd named George Hardy. Every night, without fail, George would gather his flock and read them murder mysteries. He thought it was his little secret, a strange, lonely habit that helped him wind down after a long day. He never imagined for a moment that his sheep could actually understand him. But they did, every single word. And so, while the rest of the world slumbered, George's flock, a mismatched collection of woolly detectives in training, were absorbing the finer points of criminal investigation. They learned about motive, opportunity, and alibis. They learned how to spot a clue, how to interrogate a suspect, and most importantly, how to catch a killer. To the sheep, George wasn't just a shepherd, he was their protector, their storyteller, their world. And then, one fateful morning, that world came crashing down. George Hardy was found dead in his meadow, a spade through his chest. The local police officer, a well-meaning but thoroughly bumbling man named Tim Derry, quickly ruled it a heart attack. But the sheep knew better. They had heard enough murder mysteries to recognize foul play when they saw it. This was no heart attack, this was cold-blooded murder. Leading the investigation was Lily, the smartest sheep in the flock, a Shetland with an unshakable belief in justice. At her side was Mopple, a gentle soul who possessed something extraordinary, a perfect memory, while the other sheep had the strange ability to erase painful memories just by counting to 3. Mopple could not, he remembered everything. And what he remembered was that George was a good man, a man with secrets, yes, but a good man nonetheless. George was murdered, Lily declared to the flock, and we're going to find out who did it. The other sheep murmured nervously. They had never left the meadow before. The world beyond the fence was vast and terrifying. But Lily was resolute. We've been preparing for this our whole lives. The investigation quickly revealed that George Hardy had more enemies than anyone realized. First, there was Rebecca Hampstead, George's estranged daughter, whom he had given up for adoption years ago. She had arrived in Denbrook hoping to reconnect with her father, only to find him dead and herself the prime suspect. Then there was Caleb, a rival shepherd who had been feuding with George over grazing land. Ham Gilliard, the local butcher, who saw George's sheep as walking prophet. Beth Pennock, the innkeeper who harbored an unrequited love for George that had curdled into something darker, and Reverend Hilcoate, who had his own reasons for wanting George silenced. To make matters more complicated, a nosy young journalist named Elliot Matthews had arrived in town, sniffing around for a story. He attached himself to Officer Derry, hoping to expose the incompetence of local law enforcement while advancing his career. I thought this was just a small-town tragedy, Elliot told Derry, but the more I look, the more I think this is a full-blown murder mystery. Derry, overwhelmed, nodded helplessly. A murder mystery? I was just getting used to the idea that it might not be a heart attack. Meanwhile, the sheep watched from the shadows, gathering intelligence, following suspects, and trying desperately not to be discovered. It was Mopple who noticed the first clue, a half-empty glass of whiskey in George's cottage. George never drank alone. Someone had been with him that night, someone who had poisoned him before finishing the job with the spade. The killer is someone George trusted, Mopple whispered to Lily, someone who knew his habits, his weaknesses, his secrets. As the investigation deepened, the sheep uncovered a shocking truth. George Hardy was not a poor shepherd, he was a wealthy man. Years ago, he had sold a farming patent that had made him millions, and he had been trying to reconnect with his children, twins he had given up for adoption. But there was a catch. According to the terms of George's will, only one of his children was due to inherit his fortune, and the other one was not happy about it. The sheep began to connect the dots. Elliot Matthews was not who he appeared to be. He had arrived in Denbrook at the exact same time as Rebecca. He had been asking suspicious questions, and he had been strangely eager to pin the murder on her. Lily gathered the flock. We know what happened, she announced, and we know who did it, but the humans won't believe us. They can't understand us, so we need to find a way to make them see the truth. Sebastian, the lonely ram who spent his days on the rocky cliff, raised his head. He had been a winter lamb, born out of season, rejected by the flock, and marked as an outsider. He knew what it was like to be invisible, to be dismissed, to be told that your voice didn't matter. Then we make them listen, Sebastian growled, whether they want to or not. It was the first time he had ever spoken up, and it was the moment the flock truly became a team. The sheep devised a plan. Using their knowledge of George's novels, they began planting clues: a torn piece of fabric, a muddy shoe print, a mislaid document. They strategically dropped these items in Derry's path, leading him ever closer to the truth. In the final confrontation, the sheep cornered Elliot Matthews, or, as he was really known, Peter Van Vuren, George's long-lost son. Peter had poisoned his father, then driven a spade through his chest to make it look like a frenzied attack. He had posed as a journalist to frame his sister, hoping to claim the inheritance for himself. "You killed him," Lily said, her voice trembling with anger. "You killed your own father." Peter laughed coldly. "You're a sheep, what do you know about family? What do you know about greed?" "I know," Lily replied, "that I would never hurt someone I love." Just then, Reggie and Ronnie, the twin rams, charged, their horns connected with Peter's legs, sending him sprawling. Derry, arriving on the scene with Rebecca in tow, finally understood. Peter was arrested, the truth was out.